This is how you do it. Everyone, we are back from Captain America v. Iron Man. I mean, Captain America Civil War.
Yeah, I think that a little bit of an indication right there is kind of our opinion on how this compares to the last major superhero movie that we saw.
Oh, the comments we got on that video.
I mean, first off, we want to thank everyone that watched that video.
Yeah, that was rapidly rising in views more than any that I've posted, aside from maybe my Dragon Ball retrospectives.
So for that, we give everyone who watches this thanks, and hopefully, you guys will, since that one was so successful, we might actually do more of these, considering what movies we decide to go see. It depends. It depends on the movies, but that was pretty successful. There's nothing saying that can't become a regular thing with us. So we figured, hey, we did this one where we completely bashed on a movie. Let's do one where we really, really liked a movie. Such is the case with Civil War.
Yeah, and some of the people on the last video are probably going to call us Marvel fanboys for this.
Far from it.
Let me set record straight. I have been a DC fan pretty much my whole life. I have probably read more DC comics than I have of Marvel comics. Marvel comics, I only really read Spider-Man and, on a lesser level, X-Men. DC, I am more familiar with. That's why I was so disappointed with Batman v Superman. It's not about fanboying with Marvel.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. You know what? That's kind of the same. I mean,
Marvel is doing everything so right when it comes to films.
On my side, while I've only been a kind of an avid comic book reader in the last few years or so, my exposure to the shows always, to the characters, always leaned towards DC because, as we said before, of the excellent DC animated universe from the 90s and early 2000s.
Let me give DC credit for something. When it comes to animation and television shows like the Arrowverse, they are doing so well and so fine. When it comes to theatrical films lately, aside from the Dark Knight trilogy,
which is not even in continuity with this new direction.
Yeah, someone in the comments of the last video thought it was in continuity.
Which it isn't.
I don't know either.
I mean, it's just. I think that what it all boils down to is that the last video was more. We were more angry. We were angry. We were upset. We were just thoroughly disappointed that, the two essential titans of cartoons and comics couldn't even get a satisfactory movie when that has been shown to be done so well across other mediums. I think that's what
memes were going around saying, "Oh, Batman v Superman will blow the Force Awakens ticket sales out of the." Oh, no, it fucking did not.
I mean, look, the week 1 to week 2 box office numbers kind of panned that out, but. Let's kind of get back on topic right here.
Yes, Civil War.
Now,
the last time it was Batman versus Superman. Now it's Captain America versus Iron Man. In fact, two teams of heroes against each other.
Which that in and of itself is even better because it's not just a trio or just a couple. You're essentially getting.
This was a battle royale. This was a Royal Rumble.
This was essentially okay. All right. Little bit of I'll throw in a little bit of a wrestling terminology here. Like imagine, say that you've got Attitude Era wrestling, and you got teams. You got basically the best of that era. The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Mick Foley, Triple H, all the top guys from the Attitude Era. Split them up onto two teams and then just have them go crazy against one another. More or less. That's what happened here, but I should point out that in regards of trying to tell a deeper story, while the Russo brothers and the writers on the film, I don't think maybe made a very complex story. They didn't try to make it weigh down the entire film the way that Zack Snyder and David Goyer did for Batman v Superman.
This was more thought-provoking than Batman v Superman.
Absolutely. Even
people in the last video accused us of not thinking. We were thinking.
Yeah, I think that the one thing okay, Civil War, the actual Civil War comic kind of has a, what would you say, maybe a middling reputation, kind of.
It's sort of some like it, some don't, and the real downside is it led into One More Day.
Well, yeah, and Captain America being shot.
Not that,
but no, but aside from that, it really felt like that it was trying to tell something, and I feel as though that at the very least they take the good parts of that comic book story, and they really do integrate it well into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And not only do we also get a couple of the we get the whole teams. We've also got a couple of newcomers.
One of who's actually tied in with the plot, Prince T'Challa, aka the Black Panther.
Yes,
That was a pleasant surprise. That was a brilliant way to introduce him.
Yeah, and although I think maybe everyone who did see that is kind of wondering, what are they going to do for the Black Panther movie, since they've already covered his origin, basically. But no, but I'll give credit where it's due. I think Chadwick Boseman was terrific, and I think that he's gonna be another great addition to the MCU. They seem to keep coming up with these things, and probably one of the most anticipated debuts into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Tom Holland as Peter Parker, the Spider-Man.
Welcome, Spidey, to the MCU, and you know what? He feels right at home. He really feels
This is perhaps the youngest Spider-Man we've ever gotten, and in fact, the youngest Aunt May we've ever had. Marissa Tomei is Aunt May.
I don't think there's any perhaps about it. He is the youngest. Compared, of course, to Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. But no, I think that ever since he had his initial appearance in one of the final trailers leading up to this, everyone has been wondering about, where does Spider-Man fit into this whole thing?
In answer to that question, unlike T'Challa, when we meet Spider-Man about halfway in the film, it feels like we've stepped into the sequel of a non-existent previous film.
It does, but at the same time, I don't have too much of a problem with that. Mainly because, let's face it, there are already two different big budgeted versions of the origin story of Peter Parker and Spider-Man to begin with. One of which, of course, is essentially above reproach with Sam Raimi, and the other, less said about that. Less said about amazing, the better.
But if I could,
yes,
there is a saying that every comic book is somebody's first.
How appropriate!
And I've always felt that about films. Every, comic book film is somebody's first. You don't know that there's somebody out there, somebody doesn't know Spider-Man's origin. And if they could have just had a little bit of dialogue, perhaps visual flashbacks, like at the start of Incredible Hulk, that would have been a perfect way to establish where this kid came from and get it out of the way.
Well, to be fair, they do make, little hints at it.
Very
at the edges.
Subtle.
Very subtle. But again, I think that was also intentional. I think that they were right to keep the attention where it was. And let's be fair about this. I think at the origin stages of Civil War, Spider-Man wasn't even considered to even potentially be an MCU thing, because Sony at that point was still going full steam ahead with the Amazing series until that completely crashed and burned. But it feels as though, yes, maybe it feels a little shoehorned in there, but at the same time, it was just like, what were you really going to do in that situation? I think that for what they did, it was actually pretty good. And I'll give credit to Tom Holland as well. I think that
And we're not talking about the director of
No.
Child's Play.
No. But no, I'll give Tom Holland a lot of credit. I think he is the first person, I think, in this entire thing that feels like that, at least from this early, from this very first introduction, feels like that he gets both, Peter and Spider-Man pretty darn well.
Yeah, because Tobey Maguire was a great Peter Parker,
but a so-so
Spider-Man.
Not to say bad at all, but just he wasn't kind of like the quick-witted, witty as
Andrew Garfield was a piss-poor Peter Parker.
Terrible.
But a fantastic Spider-Man.
I couldn't buy Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker one way or another. I'm sorry. That was just that I mean, you wonder why Sam Raimi decided to bolt the franchise after the third movie. I mean, if Sony was going to foist more stuff like that on him, I can't say that I blame him. But yeah, I mean, and we also see some other returning characters like General Ross making his first appearance in the MCU in 8 years since the Incredible Hulk.
And at first one, I think, directly by Disney and Marvel Studios.
You're absolutely right, because Incredible Hulk was Universal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's pretty much right now the only character that's carried over.
And he's gone from General Ross to Secretary Ross.
Secretary of State.
Secretary of State, yeah.
So, yeah, and he basically brings out, a kind of an international move because of the unfortunate reality of collateral damage. He brings out, brings to the Avengers basically that they want to put the Avengers in check. And, you have basically some heroes saying that they're on board with this, like Tony and Natasha. Mm-hmm. Others like Falcon and
Captain America.
Steve, obviously, they don't know if it's the right idea. And, this leads to, and then you have, then all of a sudden you get yourself, then all of a sudden you get the, I'm trying to go over everything in my head. At what was supposed to be the signing of it, you get an explosion where it kind of wrecks the Accords, and then just everything just goes to hell in a handbasket, especially once they think that the Winter Soldier is involved.
Right.
But overall, once again, yeah, everything. For as much as Batman v Superman pissed us off with their self-aggrandizing and their this means something when it actually doesn't mean anything, I think Marvel is just basically, guys, you don't need to be so flowery with your language, and I think that's something that Marvel has had pretty well ever since they started this 8 years ago. Is that at the very, very least. What's the first thing that you want? You want strong characters. Mm-hmm. You want strong characters. And I think that I've always believed strong characters can make a mediocre plot better, and bad characters can take a good plot and really kind of drag it down. Mm-hmm. I feel as though that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily get when it comes to it. I mean, I think that when DC was trying to do that, they were basically going under the assumption everyone knows who these two folks are, and to an extent I can understand that, but they expected us to take these guys at their word, sight unseen, and I think that was a bad miscalculation on Warner Brothers' part. I think that if they had started. The problem is that they tried to go too fast. I think that we can both agree that that's the big problem.
DC is trying to rush so quickly to get to Justice League. They just want to. We gotta advertise like 5 movies in one film.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's just not. I mean, do you think that the Avengers would have been nearly as impactful if it had been, say, the movie after Iron Man 2? I don't think it would have. I mean, let's be fair about this. I mean, Iron Man would have been established. Hulk would Iron Man, I almost said Scarlet Witch. I gotta be careful.
Johansson.
Black Widow, I mean to say. I gotta be careful with that. But you would have had a few characters established, but then you would have had guys like Captain America, and even if they would have recast Hulk from Edward Norton to Mark Ruffalo, who knows if that would have turned over okay. I think that that's the biggest problem. I think that because we've gotten to know these characters for almost a decade, I think that's why everything is so built up in us that we inherently trust Marvel to do right by these characters. And I think that that's one of the best things that the MCU has done, is that they have developed characters. And I think that that's always something, and I think that that's something that DC has completely failed at with 2 attempts at creating their own version of this. And I find it so frustrating at that, because DC, I mean, no offense to Marvel on this, because Marvel has always been, a company that has had a reputation for taking chances with their characters. But DC, with the 2 biggest characters, when people think about comic books on the planet, you think that they would be running the show, that they wouldn't be following anyone's lead. And unfortunately, they have been outclassed by Marvel. I knew for a fact once like a couple of weeks after Batman v Superman released, we got word that Marvel was lifting a social media embargo on Civil War. That immediately signaled to me that Marvel is smelling blood in the water. They know that they have a chance here to just completely destroy Batman v Superman, because Batman v Superman, everyone knew that it was going to make money through its first week. Mm-hmm. But
once word of mouth got out.
Yeah, and once everyone saw it once, or at least those that saw it that first weekend, there were people that just said, nope, no. And it didn't take long for it to completely fall out of the top 3. I mean, when you compare it to other movies like, say, Guardians of the Galaxy, which spent like the first 6 weeks of its run in either first or second, or when the original Avengers movie came out, it stayed better than I think third for almost 3 months when it came out. So it's just disappointing, and I just find it more than a little frustrating that DC can't do anything. But at the same time, I've grown to love what Marvel is doing with their universe, and I can't wait to see what directions that they take with it. I mean, because when you consider, what else do we have coming forward? We've got
Doctor Strange.
We got Doctor Strange in November. We got Guardians of the Galaxy next May.
Volume 2.
Volume 2. We got Spider-Man Homecoming next July.
Admittedly, a very weird title.
I think they say they're going for more kind of a teen comedy kind of thing with that movie. But you know what? I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt on this. They've already said that Kevin Feige is Feige. Screw me. I always get that name screwed up.
Maybe it's Feige.
I mean, who knows? He's already said, they've already announced that he is having creative control over that movie. So that should at the very least put any suspicions at ease.
I thought I had read that Sony had creative control over that one.
Nope. No. I mean, why? I mean, do you think that Marvel would be able to get that back and not have some control over that?
No. Like, Marvel would have it as part of their universe. They would distribute it, but like...
maybe Sony still has some control, but Feige is stepping in to basically say, hey, this is what we need to do with this character. At least that's what I read. You don't know. I mean, you never know how these things are going to go until it actually goes on the screen. But all the same, a good first impression. And I'm actually surprised that we have gone this long without talking about what I think is the best part about this entire movie: the action choreography.
Oh my! This
movie,
battle royale just blew Superman and Batman's playground fight out of the water.
Just the action scenes in general. I mean, and again, we should have expected this. What with the Russos having turned in Winter Soldier with some of the best scenes in the MCU up to that point. And then this one just took that up and just knocked it up to 11, including what might be one of the best superhero action scenes of all time.
Better than in Avengers.
Even better than that.
Whoa.
I mean, just again the choreography of that. And I say maybe.
And probably
I do say maybe.
And probably one of the best reactions from an audience at this battle royale.
Spoilers for those who haven't seen, but again,
spoilers.
I mean, but then again, I mean, I have the feeling that most people who are gonna go see this movie have already gone to see this movie.
The best audience reaction was the appearance from Ant-Man to Giant Man. We got Giant Man.
That was incredible. That was something that was completely unexpected, I think, from anyone that was watching this.
And I love the use of him where it allows Spider-Man to take advantage of a great Star Wars reference.
Oh, jeez. Though I will admit it will probably make some of the older folks feel real old when that joke is said. But nonetheless, again, I think that's why we are excited to see, Spider-Man Homecoming next year. It's that this is already a great first impression for Tom Holland and Spider-Man in the MCU. I think that this is something to look forward to going forward. Okay, let's at least discuss that introductory scene with Marissa Tomei. You want to talk about hanging lampshades left and right when talking about Marissa Tomei's age. I mean,
she looks damn good for 51.
Very true. Yes. She really does. But you know what? I'm also okay with how young they've taken her because it was always Aunt May.
It was never Grandma.
It was never Grandma. That's always one thing that I understand why they did it when Spider-Man was created back in the 60s. Mm-hmm. I completely understand that. But I think that it's more than okay now to say, well, wait a minute, don't you think that maybe Spider-Man's parents might have been a little bit younger, and it's a younger Spider-Man to begin with.
And this is something that they've been experimenting for a number of years now, because the Amazing Spider-Man films, we had Sally Field as Aunt May. The Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon show has a very youthful and energetic Aunt May.
and it was just, again, I think that I think I echo some folks in saying, while it is going to be easy to sort of compare these movies to the Sam Raimi movies, the first two in particular, I do think that it's time that, we essentially say, hey, you know what, those were essentially just movies that hit all the right buttons at just the right time. I mean, there are some people out there that say that that's essentially, you could look at that as the progenitor of how the MCU came to be. You basically just taking a look at how those first two movies in particular did, and it was basically refine that a little bit, and then what was Spider-Man 3, 2006? Yeah, 2 years after Spider-Man 3, Marvel says, you know what? I think we can do this. And, look where we are now, 2016, 8 years later, over a dozen films.
Well, let's not forget that X-Men and Blade were doing their marks before Spider-Man.
Well, true, but again, X-Men, but those two movies were also movies that kind of fiddled with sort of what most people, even at the time, probably knew of those characters.
X-Men I can give you. Blade,
I'm not going to say anything about that, but definitely X-Men, because I think most of the popular the popular consciousness of X-Men at the time of the Bryan Singer movies was probably the 90s cartoon show that was on Fox Kids.
Probably.
But no, though they seem to be kind of going back to that with Age of Apocalypse.
Right. And of course, people that had read the original Stan Lee run and the Chris Claremont run.
That's true as well. So, just thinking about that, I mean, this was the original Spider-Man movie was sort of that first look of just saying, okay, here's what the guy looks like. Let's try our best to make it kind of look like he jumped off of the pages. And for the most part, Sam Raimi got it almost completely perfect.
Yeah, it's weird to hear someone give props to Amazing Spider-Man 2. I think he looked fantastic in that movie.
I think he did also, but I think that I say that I was probably most disappointed after walking out of Batman v Superman. I completely neglected walking out of the original Amazing Spider-Man movie. Because I just felt to myself, man, they rebooted the franchise for this?
Yeah, I'm probably one of the few people out there that kind of liked Amazing Spider-Man 2. Not that I loved it, I got a more sense of fun out of that one.
I definitely enjoyed it more, but I think that by the time that movie came out, the damage had already been done to the franchise. And then I just think that when the lukewarm box office came in, Sony just realized, we bet on the wrong horse and we lost big. Maybe there's a lesson to be learned in that, Warner Brothers. I don't know. I mean, look, you already tried to start it one time with Green Lantern. Look how that turned out. And then you tried to do it again with Superman, which, again, I've said on multiple occasions, while I wasn't over the moon about Man of Steel, I liked it a lot more than I think some other folks did. But there's no two ways about it. If this was supposed to be if Batman v Superman was supposed to be the linchpin of your own movie universe, it has zero foundation. It has no foundation to stand on. But yeah, I mean, just the final the final fights, just the great fight that you've seen advertised from the airport, absolutely fantastic. You will love every second of it, and even more interesting than that, and probably just as well choreographed, is the final fight of the movie. The fight that we've seen in the trailers pretty much since the get-go, with Bucky, Cap, and
wailing on Iron Man.
And all three of them get their punches in, though. All three of them get their moments in that.
But the thing that confuses me about that whole fight is, and spoiler alert, is that it's instigated when Tony Stark finds out that Bucky, the Winter Soldier, killed his parents. And Captain knew about it. And he just loses his shit. And I'm just like, Tony, don't you realize that he was under mind control?
I mean,
if he wasn't thinking right, if he wasn't himself, if he wasn't Bucky Barnes, he was a completely different person.
The way that I choose to read that is that he just completely lost his mind at that. And to be fair, he had been dealing with sort of guilt and grief. I mean, he gets kind of the guilt trip treatment at the very beginning of the movie, and he's been kind of dealing with everything that has been going on throughout it, and maybe just something inside of him just turned off, and then the logic part of his brain just shut down, which, given the character that Tony is, you could definitely imagine that happening. And let's be fair, this is probably, would this be about as destructive as maybe when his logic part essentially shut down in Iron Man 2? Basically,
that was
considering how
was more like a mental breakdown kind of.
Fair enough, and we're talking about when he's
just drinking and partying and I don't care what happens, I'm about to die anyway.
Basically, until Nick Fury comes in to smack some sense into him. That is one point that you did bring up to me, is that we did have a lack of Nick Fury in this, but again, he's supposedly deceased after the events of
quote unquote,
of course, after the events of Winter Soldier. So maybe I can let that one slide a little bit.
I mean, he did appear in Age of Ultron.
Well, but again, you're trying to lay low, and I think that the last thing that he wants to do is, really, he sees this as a very public affair, and that's probably why he doesn't want to get involved into it. Because if he goes public, then a lot of other crap could happen. So it's just a thought on that.
We got Crossbones in this movie.
Crossbones at the very beginning. Crossing back over from
Winter Soldier. And he's got the mask and the X and all of that. And pretty much our main villain, which was a surprise for me, was Baron Zemo, who is not a Baron in this. They took, he's a whole liberty.
He's a whole liberty, but again, it's also the kind of liberty that the MCU has done, I think, fine work with taking liberties with certain characters and making them work.
Though maybe in a future installment he'll become more like a supervillain.
Right, because he's not dead at the end of this whole thing. But yeah, I mean overall, and even as well, getting some getting some extra moments, say with Vision and Scarlet Witch,
those are good moments.
That was kind of, it's those kinds of moments, those character building moments, those moments where you slow down on the story and you really just show these characters being characters.
And crack a joke or two.
Let's not have this whole thing be so down. I don't think we hate comparing it to Batman v Superman, but Marvel has got this thing down to a damn science at this point. They essentially are at the point now where, we can essentially print money at this point. Because that's what these movies do. Maybe Ant-Man wasn't as successful as some of the other MCU films, but I've got a definite good feeling that this movie is actually going to do really well at the box office. And then of course we'll see what happens when Doctor Strange comes out around Thanksgiving.
How will he fit into this?
I think that's.
So, I'm still trying to figure out how Daredevil fits into this.
Again, they don't make any trips to Hell's Kitchen here, so. But again, just everything that's going on with the MCU right now, just watching it, seeing how everything fits together, that's half the fun I think that we've had with these movies pretty much since they premiered. I made a post. It's fascinating to me as someone who has been going to these superhero movies for years now to think back. 2008, I was so focused on The Dark Knight that I passed up the opportunity to see Iron Man.
So
I had no idea that what had been set into motion was something that was essentially going to change what popular cinema was. And it's just fascinating to just look at that, just wondering, because there's two clear lines of what happened. Marvel going that way and DC going in completely the other direction. Now, to be fair, The Dark Knight is one of those movies that could be put up there, say, with the first two Spider-Man movies, with the original Richard Donner Superman movie.
The Dark Knight, in my opinion, is the best Batman movie ever made by far.
I don't think I can deny that. Again, though admittedly we haven't seen it in a while, but at the same time, it's still one of those movies that I guarantee you, if you went back and watched it, it would probably stand up pretty damn well. But everything since then, what DC movies have come out since Dark Knight? There was Green Lantern, Jonah Hex, Dark Knight Rises.
It was okay. It was decent.
It was good until
I hated that ending.
The ending was pretty just like, what? You really decided to do that? I think I'm more pissed. I think I'm more pissed off in that ending about how they handled the little Robin drop more than anything else.
Oh God, Moses smelled the roses.
But that's, And then what else from there? I mean, and then of course you got Man of Steel, which, again, I say that I thought that, okay, you got this one out of the way. Maybe a second movie could fix some of the problems.
No.
But then, you know what? But you know something? I guarantee you, if they didn't have Batman thrust in there, they probably would have done Doomsday as early as they did. And then, of course, you just look at Marvel, at least on the MCU side, you had Iron Man.
Fantastic.
Incredible Hulk. Iron Man 2. Perhaps the weakest of the MCU. I don't think that...
But weaker than Thor 2?
It's a coin flip between those two, honestly. At the very least, Iron Man 2 again still has, it still has Robert Downey Jr. playing, a great character.
Right. I still don't see the problem with Iron Man 2 that other people see with it. I mean, like, I'm not, worshipping it, but
I think that maybe one of the things is that people just really didn't like the villain in that. Villains. But to an extent, can you necessarily blame them? Justin Hammer was a real dink, and Ivan Vanko... Man, Mickey Rourke should have been better in an MCU role. I think that's the only thing. But then after Iron Man 2, you had Thor.
Great.
Captain America, the First Avenger.
Real good.
And then you had the Avengers.
Fantastic.
I mean, it's like I think back, because we were in that, the funny thing is, we were in that exact same theater 5 years ago. 5 years ago, right? No, 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
4 years ago. We were in that same exact theater 4 years ago. Our necks craned up watching the whole thing because we were in the very front row.
Right. Because we went to a midnight screening. And
yeah, midnight screenings. Do they do those anymore?
Now everything premieres Thursday night.
Thursday night. I mean
Thursday evening.
And maybe what happened with the shooting in Aurora had something to do with that. Maybe. I mean, who knows? But then, and then Iron Man 3.
I hated the Mandarin.
I love the Mandarin. I thought that I will maintain to this day that I think that the Mandarin is the best damn swerve that the MCU has ever pulled on us. I mean, again, opinions will differ on that, but honestly, I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. Then you had, then it was Thor 2?
Thor 2.
Thor 2.
Thor the Dark World.
Thor the Dark World, which, let's be fair, that wasn't... That again wasn't bad, but it was definitely lacking.
Yeah, you had one of the doctors as Malekith.
Yeah, Christopher Eccleston, that's right. But yeah, and then after that, was it Guardians?
After that,
no, Winter Soldier. You're right, Winter Soldier, which
fantastic.
Rewrote the book. Just basically said it's just like, hey, everything you know about the MCU. Well, throw that out the window. We're changing the rules on you. And then after that, then was Guardians of the Galaxy.
Unexpected success of Guardians. Oh my God.
Unexpected success and just unexpected fun. I think that was half the. And again, I think that's the recurring key that works with this. The characters were so much fun.
Yeah, and I was talking about this a couple weeks ago. If I were doing a DC cinematic universe, not that I'm any filmmaker, but, if I was in charge, how I envision it, I would have the DC's equivalent to Guardians of the Galaxy be the Legion of Superheroes.
From the year 3000, right?
Something like that.
Something
Yeah,
like that.
right. And have Supergirl be a major focus of that.
Not a bad idea. Considering that they did that with the animated series.
She joins up with Brainiac 5 in her last appearance of that.
But again, I mean, you think about whenever I think about the MCU, I think about great characters, and I always think about you want the best example of character in a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie that doesn't take itself too seriously. Guardians is probably the best choice. And it's probably
and you don't even need to watch any of the previous movies.
It probably, I was about to say, it probably works as the best standalone post-Avengers movie. Because, you can just jump right into it and not have anything. I mean, how many times can you throw up, say, the clip of Rocket Raccoon laughing at Quill's plan?
That's a fake laugh.
It's real!
Totally fake.
That is the most real, authentic, hysterical laugh of my entire life because that is not a plan.
And then
you had Age of Ultron.
Well, but before you move on to that, probably the character that I've been the most that I was certainly surprised at the most was Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy. And I'm not even saying that as a wrestling fan. I'm saying that as I did not expect that Dave Bautista was going to be able to just be such an interesting character and such a quotable character to boot. It's literally just something that came way out of left field, but I was just like, hey, you know what? This is good. Then Age of Ultron, which
wasn't as good as Avengers.
I think that the bloom is a little bit off the rose for that movie, but I do think that the movie might be better than I think some people are saying that it was, at least retroactively.
I thought it was decent and pretty good, but not as good as Avengers.
I can agree with that. I can definitely agree with that. And then what did you have after Avengers? You had Ant-Man, which, a fun little, self-contained.
Well, is it self-contained? Because he has that little run-in with the Falcon midway through.
Right. Almost forgot about that.
One of the highlights of the movie.
Absolutely.
It's really important to me that Cap never finds out about this.
Oh my gosh. And then, of course, you come here for Civil War. Great fights, great characters, great writing, great direction. With the Russo brothers in charge of the Infinity War movie, you know what? They have earned movies. Yes, they have completely earned the benefit of the doubt. And I think that at the moment, there's no reason to not trust these guys inherently, that we're not going to get some kind of just incredible action sequences in Infinity War that is just going to even pass what we're seeing here, because especially at that point we're going to have more people involved.
We're going to have Doctor Strange.
We're going to have Doctor Strange and
Captain Marvel.
Okay, question about that: is her movie supposed to be before these movies? Because they've shuffled around the schedule.
They've shuffled around, but I think she's still,
if not.
Either before Infinity Part 1 or between the two.
I think I remember seeing that she got squeezed, that she got bumped to in between the two Infinity War movies. Could be wrong about that. And besides, you know what? If anything of what we've seen here is true, they could very easily do an origin story of her in any one of these movies. I mean, hell, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the seeds for her are planted in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Maybe.
I mean, the Kelly Sue DeConnick comic had her doing a couple missions with the Guardians, so that's certainly a possibility. But it's just everything that Marvel just seems to do right now just does not seem to fail, and I think it's getting to this point right now where people are wondering what's going to be the first one to fail. And even if one of these movies fails, that's not going to kill this. That's not going to kill this this whole thing yet. It's going to keep going. I think that the best analogy is from someone that I heard who basically said, say Doctor Strange doesn't succeed, which, should I also just say that I think that the people out there that are complaining about, directors that aren't, unique enough for superhero comics to be kind of a facetious argument. The director of Doctor Strange is known for horror movies. For goodness sakes, I think that kind of works for a more supernatural based hero like Doctor Strange.
And Thor had Kenneth Branagh, a man known for Shakespeare films.
the first Captain America movie had Joe Johnston directing, a guy that kind of knows how to shoot, sort of like that, that nostalgic Thomas Rockwell Americana from like the from like the 40s and 50s.
He did The Rocketeer.
Rocketeer did.
He created Boba Fett and the Ewoks.
I'm trying to think. What was another one that? Was it October Sky? I think is what it was called. I forget what it was. A movie that I remember.
I think so.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. But that was another one that he did, and a guy whose previous experience when it came to directing a big, essentially tentpole film was Jurassic Park 3. But Marvel had the foresight to say, hey, you know what? We think you can do this. And then, we even bring up frickin'...
he wasn't as good as the Russos, but...
Well, still. But at the same time, it was understandable for that movie. Because of the period of time that movie took place in.
Right.
And I think that's what they were going for. And then, of course... Jon Favreau directing the first 2 Iron Man movies. That was just essentially a guy known for these kind of oddball comedies.
Swingers.
Kind of these oddball comedy movies. All of a sudden coming in and basically being like, all right, I'll do a superhero.
And I'll cast myself as his buddy.
There you go. And it just keeps going. And then of course, with Guardians, who did you get but a guy who came from the trauma school, for goodness sakes?
And he even got Lloyd Kaufman in there.
Exactly. A guy that comes from the trauma school, all of a sudden directing a big motion picture like Guardians of the Galaxy, that almost seems like a recipe for disaster. But it worked. And I don't see this changing anytime soon. I'm trying to. Is it the director of Creed that's directing Black Panther?
I forget.
I forget, but it's someone along that line. It's either that or it was or Fruitvale Station, which was Michael B. Jordan's kind of opening salvo as an actor. Mm-hmm. Before that Fantastic Four reboot, but we don't talk about the dark times.
Dark times are just in the past year.
And then of course you've got some of the creative staff behind the Agent Carter TV series, who's going to be working on the Captain Marvel movie. Just everything that Marvel just seems to do seems to work, and I don't see any reason why anyone that is at the very least. And to those that are saying, it's too complicated to follow, how complicated is it for you to follow? The only franchises that are out of Marvel Studios' hands at the moment are X-Men and Fantastic Four, essentially. So it's just like, how difficult is it for you to keep a track of that?
So we should probably wrap things up.
We probably should, yeah. This one was definitely more rambly than the last one that we did.
He loves to talk.
But you know what? This was a good one to talk about. And you know what? You did some talking as well. So let's be fair about that. Is it really such a problem? I think that we do these for a reason. We do these to get our opinions out. So why shouldn't we talk? So yeah. If you haven't gone see it yet, go see it. If you went to see it and enjoyed it, let's have some conversations in the comments. Let's keep it civil. Let's keep it sane, and let's have a nice talk about these things, because we love movies. We love superheroes. We love superhero movies. We love talking about superhero movies.
So until next time,
take care, and let's hope. Let's assemble again, perhaps for Doctor Strange,
right?
Or heck, even for the next X-Men. Who knows? We'll figure it out. We'll do another one of these when the mood hits.
Alrighty.